is standing by with Finance Minister Malusi Gigaba. Sherwin, over to you.
Tabile, thanks so much indeed, and just to our viewers at home, we are being serenaded by a choir that is performing here during the lunch break at the conclusion of the International Monetary and Finance Committee meeting. This is a meeting of finance ministers and governors where they talk about international monetary policy. The Minister of South Africa's Minister of Finance, Malusi Gigaba, was part of that discussion. He joins me now. Minister, good to see you. A tough week for you. What are some of the conclusions that we can take out of that IMFC meeting here in DC?
You know, I think the most important thing which has come out, which seems to resonate throughout all the meetings, is that the global economic upswing is continuing. We need to sustain the momentum for accelerated, broad-based and more inclusive growth. Although the medium-term outlook for advanced economies as well as commodity exporters remains subdued, there is a feeling also that the risks remain. They may be balanced, but they remain skewed to the downside. If you consider the geopolitical and economic uncertainties, inward-looking policies and protectionism, mainly in developed countries, and anticipated abrupt slowdown in the Chinese economy, which would have global spillovers. So looking at all of those, we need not become complacent as policymakers. We need to continue implementing fiscal and monetary policy reforms, structural reforms to up the speed of structural reforms, but certainly we don't need to become complacent, and that is the message that resonates throughout.
One of the big concerns, particularly for sub-Saharan Africa, is that we are still lagging. We are behind the curve of global growth as we speak currently. Global growth at about 3.6% for 2017, sub-Saharan Africa at 2.4%. But we are seeing a return of foreign direct investment. The concern, though, for people like yourself is that the money is going into established sectors like the mining sector in an era where countries like South Africa need to be attracting FDI into a diversified economy. How big a challenge is that to change the mindset of FDI or investors to invest in other industries as you try and change the game of play in South Africa?
A further concern is that your three biggest economies in Africa, Angola, Nigeria and South Africa, are following the curve.
Not necessarily in that order, of course. Not
necessarily in that order, but the three of them, if they were growing faster, they would contribute massively towards sub-Saharan growth. But there is a need for us to focus on diversification, on the fourth technological revolution, to ensure that not only in terms of the technological industries, the secondary and tertiary sectors, but also in terms of skills development, we are able to attract investments in the areas that are going to lead to faster and more inclusive growth on the African continent. We do need to take advantage of our primary sectors and ensure that they continue to perform, all of us, but we have to focus our energies and all efforts towards developing capabilities for secondary and tertiary sectors, dealing with challenges of cybersecurity, ensure that our economies in terms of legislation, in terms of capacity, were able to contend with the new challenges which are facing the global economy.
You mentioned, Minister, the fourth industrial revolution, and for that you need skills. Is our education up to standard in terms of the skills that are required to make this revolution a success in South Africa? Are we at a level that we are required to be in terms of the people that we are molding for the workforce that we require, for the labor force that we require today?
You see, the South African economy, like the Indonesian economy, for example, we invest a lot of money in education, but the output is not at the level that we want it to be. We've had a discussion with the various finance ministers and central bank governors from different countries, and the focus, if you listen to areas like Europe and elsewhere, they are talking about issues which we are not even talking about in terms of technology, industrial revolution, in terms of the skills base and the changing nature of work in different countries. Now, for us, we need to ensure that we up our game. The question arises in relation to the investments that we are spending. How agile are our education reforms to cope with the changes, the vast changes in the nature of production in the global economy, and I think that's where we're lagging behind, and we need to continue paying attention to the quality of the teachers, the quality of the teaching methodology and the equipment we provide to learners, as well as the quality of the learning itself.
It's about the outcomes. That's what the World Bank is saying. We need to identify the outcomes and work towards that. Minister, you are also meeting with ratings agencies. I think you've met with two of the big ones already, one more later today. What's your sense? What's the sense you're getting? Is South Africa going to escape a downgrade later this year, or should we tighten our belts even further?
It is our responsibility to ensure that we avoid a downgrade. It's our responsibility. In the least, we need to maintain our current investment grade. At best, we need to continue improving. I don't see us improving immediately in the short term, but in the medium term, I see us getting out of the current investment grade and going up, largely because of persisting risks that they still foresee. The medium-term budget policy statement will go a long way towards alleviating the concerns they have. If we can maintain the fiscal framework, maintain the expenditure framework. I've been emphasizing this point. We need to deal with certain policy risks, such as in the telecommunications, in the mining sector, as well as in the nuclear sector. And I have been saying that the South African economy at the present moment is not in a position where it can be able to carry the burden of nuclear technology, and therefore we cannot proceed with that program at the present moment until the economy has grown sufficiently and there is vast demand. At the present moment, Eskom is able to meet South Africa's energy needs. We therefore need to walk very carefully and tread slowly towards nuclear. If in the future we have to take that direction, we must not discount it from the energy mix, but certainly the fiscus and the economy are not in any position to carry the burdens of nuclear at the present moment.
Minister, you go back to South Africa in a couple of hours or maybe tomorrow, and the big focus when you get back, of course, is going to be this medium-term budget on, I think, October 25th.
October 25th, yes.
How much have things changed based on your discussions here in terms of what you're going to say in Parliament come October 25th?
Look, when you come here, it's 2 weeks before the MTBPS. There is not much that changes. Everything that we need to say in the medium-term budget policy statement is set. So it's pretty much cast in stone, and I am on lockdown period where I don't have to say a lot.
Give us a teaser, Minister. One teaser.
A teaser is that you need to watch out for what we are going to say on the 25th. If I tease you now, you may start speculating. I don't think we need to start speculating.
All right, let's talk about state-owned enterprises. What are you going to say about state-owned enterprises in that?
The SOE reform process needs to continue. In actual fact, it needs to accelerate. The challenges at Eskom have got to be addressed as a matter of urgency. We need a new board at Eskom,
right,
of credible, ethical people who inspire confidence.
We need a new board at the SABC.
We need a new board at the SABC and a new executive leadership at Eskom, at the SABC, and we need to complete the executive recruitment at South African Airways. If we address particularly the biggest risk that the South African fiscus is facing is with regards to Eskom and SAA. Never mind about SABC, but Eskom and SAA have got the largest government guarantees and contingent liabilities. They expose our budget and our economy quite significantly.
And yet privatization is out of the question.
Complete privatization is out of the question, but a strategic equity partner for South African Airways is in line. We are working towards that, and I think within the next 6 months we should have a strategic equity partner. But that depends on us putting in place a proper board. That depends on us making sure that the new CEO has got a good complement of executives, including the strategy manager, and then they start that process of seeking out a strategic equity partner, because it can't be the decision of government.
Do you know how much SAA needs at the end of the day from Treasury?
We have already allocated 10 billion rand recapitalization for this financial year. We then have to look at the corporate plan over the next MTF period. We had earmarked in terms of their corporate plan about 13 billion rand. And so we need to decide whether the balance, the remaining balance of the recap will come from the fiscus or from the strategic equity partner. We need to bring a strategic equity partner in order to not only address the current debt liabilities of the airline, but also to be able to generate some cash revenues to fund the turnaround strategy and to bring in some of the private sector managers that will support the new CEO in his unenviable job.
Final question, most important question. Do you love this job?
I love the job. I will love any job that I'm assigned. I never applied for this job. I didn't go to an interview. I was never asked whether I want to take it or I don't. I was never given an option to bail out from it. And so once I'm given any job, this or the ones I've done before, the ones I may do in the future, I will love them. The most important thing is to serve my people, serve my country, and serve the African National Congress.
Sounds like a pitch for something in the future, Minister Gigaba. Thank you, sir, very much indeed. I get the last word.
No comment.
The Minister of Finance, Malusi Gigaba, speaking to us here at the almost conclusion of the IMF World Bank fall-autumn meetings in Washington. Tabile, back to you in Johannesburg.
Thank you very much, Sherwin. Nice way to wrap it up there, asking the Finance Minister if he loves his job. That was our correspondent, Sherwin Bryce-pease, joining us from the IMF meetings as they wrap up in Washington. Now, President